All right, let's jump right into this explainer and uncover why the genuinely wealthiest people around you are probably the ones you'd absolutely least suspect. Today, we're really going to break down the calm, frankly, relentlessly unglamorous side of building real wealth. Because you know what? True wealth isn't about what you show off to the world. It's entirely about what you keep when nobody else is watching.
So think about it for a second. Who is the absolute richest person you know? When I ask that, your brain probably jumps straight to physical objects, right? Most of us have been trained by, nonstop advertising and highly curated social media feeds to measure money that way. We see the loud announcements, the sprawling houses, the absolute flashiest cars in the parking lot, and we instantly think, wow, wealth? But we have to fundamentally challenge that assumption right now. What you're actually seeing when you look at those luxury items isn't wealth at all. It's simply spending. You are literally looking at a receipt for money that is already gone, not an account balance of money that remains.
I mean, think about what a car payment actually represents. If you go out and finance a $50,000 luxury simple, you are essentially chaining yourself to a heavy anchor. You're committing to handing over about $700 every single month for years just to own a machine that is actively and aggressively losing its value the literal moment you drive it off the lot. On the flip side, if you drive something sensible and quietly plant that exact same $700 a month into a deeply boring index fund, the math changes completely. Over just 6 years, assuming historical market returns, you build a $70,000 foundation. It's wild to think about, but financing a flashy symbol costs you the exact same monthly payment as quietly building lasting generational wealth. So here's a definition I absolutely love. Invisible wealth is simply money that hasn't left the building yet. It is the permanent absence of financial fear. And honestly, once you absorb that definition, it completely rewires how you view success. The person in the grocery store who looks like they might be struggling, they're very often the ones sleeping soundly at night with a fully funded retirement account. Meanwhile, that loud spender swiping a shiny premium metal card is frequently the fragile one, trapped in this endless cycle of payments and, honestly, maybe just 2 missed paychecks away from an absolute crisis. Okay, let's move into part 1. Who actually gets rich? We're going to look at the 10,000 Millionaires study. So researchers did this massive study, literally the largest ever done on everyday millionaires in history, tracking 10,000 individuals just to find out how they actually built their net worth. And one specific number just stood out above all the rest: 79%. Nearly 80% of these everyday millionaires received absolutely zero inheritance. No massive trust funds, no wealthy relatives passing away, no special head starts, nothing. The persistent story we constantly tell ourselves that wealth is just some exclusive club for the inherited elite is, for the vast majority of real-world millionaires, completely false. And actually, here's an even crazier stat. 1 out of every 3 self-made millionaires never even earned a 6-figure salary in a single working year of their entire life. Let that land for a second. A full third of the people who successfully crossed that $1 million net worth mark never had what society would consider a massive, high-status salary. They didn't rely on a huge income to save them at all. They just relied on absolute, boring consistency over decades. And the careers producing the most millionaires, they are delightfully, quietly unglamorous. Number 1, engineer. 2, accountant. And 3, a teacher. That's right, the person who taught your kid long division is statistically far more likely to retire wealthy than the highly stressed corporate executive with the leased sports car. This is not a secretive club of CEOs taking private jets everywhere. It's really just a quiet army of ordinary earners doing unremarkable things for a very long time and completely ignoring the intense pressure to look rich. Which brings us to part 2, the engine of boring wealth. So how do they actually pull this off? Well, there's this brilliant little mental shortcut in finance called the Rule of 72. It perfectly captures the most patient force in the universe, which is compounding. You simply divide the number 72 by your annual return rate to see exactly how many years it'll take your invested money to double. So at the American stock market's historical average of roughly 10%, your money silently and powerfully doubles roughly every 7 years. Now, sure, those early doubles might feel painfully slow and kind of pointless, like you're just turning a few coins into a small handful. But you have to give that foundation time to multiply. Those later doubles where you're turning 200,000 into 400,000, those are absolutely enormous, and they happen entirely in the background while you sleep. Because time is literally everything when you're building this foundation. Just imagine 2 different timelines for a second. If you do nothing exciting at all, but simply start feeding a $500 monthly investment at age 25, you're planting a seed that has decades to grow.
But if you wait until age 35 to plant that exact same seed, you don't just end up with a little less money. You leave yourself with roughly 1/3 of the total wealth by the time you hit retirement. Think about that. 10 years of doing nothing exciting early on is literally worth well over $1 million later. The market heavily rewards the calm in the early.
And you can really see this massive, quiet gap playing out in American finance today. Vanguard tracks millions of real-world retirement accounts, and their data paints a fascinating picture. The average balance sits right around $168,000, but the median, meaning the person standing at the exact middle of the pack, has only about $44,000. The boring people, those quiet, consistent savers we've been talking about, are hiding inside that average, pulling it massively upward with their compounded returns. Meanwhile, a median balance of $44,000, that produces only about $150 a month in retirement income. That is a quiet, widespread emergency for anyone trying to fund a lifestyle later on.
All right, let's look at part 3, the Quiet Wealth Playbook. So what is the actual formula for joining the quiet wealthy? It really comes down to 4 fiercely boring but highly actionable steps. First, automate your investments before you can even see the money hit your checking account. Make wealth building the default and make reckless spending take actual physical effort. Second, build a high-yield emergency fund. This creates a safety buffer so you never have to panic sell your long-term investments just because, say, your car transmission decides to break. Third, fiercely avoid high-interest credit card debt like it's the absolute plague. And fourth, buy and slowly pay off a reasonable, modest house. No risky flipping, no dramatic real estate empires, just steady, quiet ownership. And the raw power of these boring habits, it's genuinely staggering when you look at the outcomes. 3 out of 4 everyday millionaires treated credit cards merely as convenient tools and never carried a balance in their entire lives. 94% of them simply live on less than they make, every single month, no exceptions. And consider this housing gap. The median homeowner's net worth sits right around $400,000, while the median renter is closer to $10,000. That is a massive 40-to-1 advantage, created quietly just by locking in and eventually erasing your largest monthly living expense. Moving on to part 4, surviving the excitement trap. To make this work, you have to survive what's called the excitement trap, the dangerous pull of lifestyle creep. Let's look at 2 completely different approaches. First, we have Marlon. Marlon earns a very impressive $200,000 a year and absolutely looks the part. He's got the luxury car, the incredible downtown address, the designer clothes, the whole shebang. But he upgrades his spending with every single raise he gets. If his income stopped tomorrow, his entire life would collapse in a matter of months. Despite his high income, he remains deeply fragile. Then, look at Bernadette. She's a modest teacher who never once cracked a 6-figure salary, but she simply defines the concept of enough, steadily saves the difference whenever she gets a raise, and over time becomes a totally free millionaire. Marlon looks rich to his neighbors, for sure, but Bernadette, she is actually free. Warren Buffett really hits the nail on the head here. And by the way, he is still living in the exact same $31,000 home in Omaha that he bought way back in 1958. He constantly reminds us that the financial world is loud, mostly because loud is profitable for the people selling it to you. Loud, exciting financial bets, whether we're talking about single-day options trading, crypto frenzies, or prediction markets, they are essentially a trap. They're designed to recruit you, entertain you, and ultimately take your money. Relentless boredom is exactly how you protect yourself from the casino. Which leads us to our final section, part 5, the ultimate prize is peace. Because at the end of the day, the ultimate payoff of this entirely unglamorous lifestyle isn't some high score you can brag about to strangers on the internet. True wealth acts as an invisible protective bubble around your life. It means waking up on a random Tuesday without a single shred of financial dread. It means absorbing a surprise medical bill or a major home repair with total calm instead of full-blown panic. It means surviving a sudden corporate layoff without feeling like your world is ending. Ultimately, it's about maintaining a nervous system that finally gets to rest. It is the simple, permanent absence of fear. So I'll leave you with this one question to think about. Are you spending your future to decorate your present? The people who look the absolute richest in your neighborhood are very often doing exactly that. They're trading their future freedom for today's status symbols. The genuinely wealthy, on the other hand, tend to be almost suspiciously relaxed. Reconsider whether you want to perform wealth for an audience today or quietly build the freedom to be completely unbothered tomorrow. Choose to be the second kind. Let your life look a little boring on the surface while the real wealth builds quietly and unstoppably underneath.